Grief is considered a taboo in our culture. We normally have a death in our family, we plan or attend funerals, and then we go back to life. Work and struggles still go on daily. I will talk about some ways we can grieve and help others grieve as we move forward in our life. As children, we're exposed to death early on. Can you name your favorite Disney movie? Funny enough, most children are exposed to death right away. The Lion King, his dad dies. Cinderella, family dies and she lives with her stepfamily. We have Bambi, mom dies. Frozen, parents die in a boat wreck. Moana, grandma dies. Big Hero 6, his brother dies in a fire. Nemo, she gets eaten. This is how they portray kid movies. Why is it that in our society we take death so lightly, so to speak? We expose ourselves to death early on and it almost becomes immune to it. In the United States, most insurance companies will give us 6 to 8 weeks off for a broken arm or a leg. If you have an immediate death in your family, you're maybe given a week at the most. Why is there such a difference in how we treat people who experience a death? Could you function at work after a sudden death of a loved one? Maybe there was a car accident and it was a huge shock. Maybe you've been a caretaker for months or years of a parent, sibling, or even a spouse, and they die. Then you have to bounce back to life after a week, 7 days. First, let's explore what can happen to someone who's going through grief. Brooke Noel from griefsteps.com talks about some physical and emotional things a new bereaved person might experience. She first touches on exhaustion. Your body is physically tired and your energy level is depleted. Most times, an easy task or an errand is really hard to do. Grabbing car keys, going to the store, remember a grocery list, going to the cashier, doing a money transaction, did you forget your wallet, driving back home. This can all be extremely physically exhausting to somebody who's just experienced a death. Next, she speaks about days of distraction. Before the death, you functioned quite well, and life was going on great. But now after someone has died, it seems like the most basic tasks are hard to get through. She recommends the bereaved slow down. We need to be aware of our body and our emotions. Take a little more time for the basic steps and the small things. Remind yourself it's okay to slow down and take more time for you. She says next, grief has no schedule. According to Brooke, grief does not make a schedule in our calendar books. Some days grief you're going on is normal and you might be having a good day in the grief world and then boom, a trigger hits. And in a trigger, we call in the grief world, it could be the smell of perfume from your loved one. Maybe you smell their cologne. You could be going to the grocery store and shopping for two and you grab your husband's favorite pickles and you remember he's dead. All these small things to other people are huge triggers to us. And this, though, is to be reminded that grief is the most uncontrolled thing we don't have control over, but it is normal. Physical symptoms, these are quick and these are the most common people experience. We have pain, sleep difficulties, poor appetite and overeating, shakiness and trembling, listlessness, disorientation, migraines and headaches, dizziness, dry mouth, crying, numbness, shortness of breath, and exhaustion. These are just the basic and common ones that most people experience after a death. Next is a time to withdraw. This refers to a period of time after the death that a loved one might be numb and withdraw from life temporarily. You might be a wife and you're withdrawing from your husband and children and forgetting your basic tasks of taking care of your family. These things are really hard to do. There is a time frame though. If you feel like you're withdrawing too much and you can't get back into life, it's important to have a friend or a therapist come help you with some coping skills and exposure therapy to get us back on track in a time frame that lasts longer than anticipated, especially with withdrawing from life. Impulse living is another characteristic that might happen to the newly bereaved. Impulse living is common, seen in the first year, and they're impulse decisions made by the survivor. Selling a house you once lived with and your husband for 45 years after the death because you can't stand to be in there anymore will be an impulse living situation. Going on vacation and traveling the world after someone dies, realizing life is too short, but you're blowing your life savings. These are impulse controls, and we do recommend that you take 12 months to sit after the death of a loved one and not make heavy, big decisions. If financially you need to make them with a house or some kind of payments of sorts, we ask that you go to a good friend and people in your life that care about you and will have your best intentions at heart with advice. The last thing grief can look at is a dreamlike world, according to Brooke. She says many people who have lost someone suddenly can experience a dreamlike state. Like they were living in a fog every day and really can't focus and get things done. Some have explained that it feels like an out-of-body experience. The world is still going on and they're still participating in it. They're just seeing it from the outside, or a floating-like state. This is a normal response that our body is saying, you've just had tragedy and trauma in our lives, and it's trying to protect us. Again, all normal, but time frames are important to make sure we don't stay in this forever. With all these characteristics of what grief can look like, I think it's important to address that everyone has their own unique grief journey. Some may experience all of these traits, and another person might experience only one or two of them. Let's look at what we cannot do to help the bereaved, according to Dr. Gary Gregg. We cannot fix them, we cannot save them, take away their pain, make decisions for them, make up for their losses, make them do what we think is best, make them understand the truth, make them agree with our viewpoints on their loss. But what we can do, though, is we can pray and provide hope for them. We can listen to them, display healthy and good modeling for them, identifying choices for them, and let them know it's okay to pick their battles every day while they're going through their grief journey. In closing, the grieving and mourning people are walking a journey that is painful and hard. The best thing we can do is walk beside them and become active listeners. Grief has no time limit. It is not something you get over. Grief is something we live with. Does it get better? Yes. Does time heal it? No. But it helps. What does happen is Jesus Christ, who can heal and help the wounds of the bereaved. It says in John 16:33, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world.